We're Laura and Aaron, and we wanted to share with as much honesty as possible our story of why we decided to leave everything we knew in the busy cities that we grew up in and switch to van life out in the middle of nature.
We've been living this way for 5 years now, and we thought it was time to finally explain how we made this drastic lifestyle shift and all the unexpected things that happened along the way.
We met at university in London, having both come from big cities with big ambitions. Aaron wanted to be a songwriter and I wanted to be a fashion designer. We used to try and romanticize our lives as broke art students, pretending like we were characters from an indie movie, trying to make our lives feel more exciting and dramatic than they were. If we're being honest, the reason that we did this was because it began to dawn on us since starting our degrees that the careers we were heading towards and the lives that we dreamt of since we were little looked alarmingly underwhelming.
We'd studied so hard for these careers which we thought would be fun and dreamy, and suddenly we were learning the truth that these industries are actually just exhausting rat races, more about sales and profit than creativity. We were beginning to realise that our lives would be spent working like crazy, just trying to keep up with the expense of living excessively consumerist lives in the city. Just like that, our dreams died, and along with them went our motivation. Our futures felt empty and kinda sad. The rose-tinted glasses were off and we could see the human-centric world for what it really was, relentlessly working just to relentlessly consume in a never-ending cycle so fast-paced that there's no time to take a step back and realise how unnecessary and excessive it all is. Surely there had to be more to life than this.
The world around us got even darker and scarier as my little sister became severely suicidal. I didn't know it at the time, but it'd be 8 long years until she'd be well enough to leave the psychiatric hospital. Eventually, nothing really felt important anymore, and when it feels like nothing matters, as humans we're desperately searching around, grasping for something that truly is important so that we can feel some meaning to life again. If careers and money and looks and society don't actually matter, then what's left? We couldn't see a future for ourselves in London anymore. Letting go of an old lifestyle can be hard though, even when you know it's not right for you, especially when you don't yet have a new dream to chase after. A couple years passed as we left uni, overwhelmed and empty and struggling with anxiety. We'd moved back into our family homes at opposite ends of the country and we hated being apart. We spent ages researching alternative ways of living and finally we had a new dream, to be together, living simple, peaceful lives of purpose off-grid in nature.
We were on really low salaries, but we figured that van life would just about be affordable for us. That way we wouldn't have to pay rent or bills and we'd get to be surrounded by nature while slowly saving up for land someday. But it's pretty terrifying taking the first steps of such a huge lifestyle shift. The fear of the unfamiliar steers you into procrastination and avoidance. For us, it was just never quite the right time to buy a van, and it started to feel like it would never be the right time. The realisation that we might never take the plunge broke us into a weird, desperate grief for something we've never even had. Do you know what it feels like to grieve a dream? The despair when you start to let go of the vision that was keeping you going. And as we considered giving up on the van life idea, during that small moment we found enough sadness, anger and fear within us to ignite a burning fire of determination, strong enough to overcome all the obstacles along our way. It was finally time for us to get serious about van life.
We took as many jobs as we could find to save up our target of £4,000 each. Aaron was busking, singing in care homes and doing delivery work. I was working with young people struggling with their mental health. It took us around 18 months to get the money, but we made the most of that time using every spare moment we had to plan our adventure route, design our dream van and learn all we could about van conversions and van life. At long last, we found a good enough van and we took the plunge. It was a 10-year-old minibus that had barely been used and it cost us £4,200. It was such a scary investment. This was the most we'd ever spent on anything before, but it was time to stop procrastinating and commit. There was no going back now, and we were giddy with excitement. Now we could finally live together again and begin building our new life one piece of scrap wood at a time. We quit our jobs and we got straight to work with stripping out the old minibus seats.
Laura's parents were kind enough to let us do the conversion on their driveway. We had to be very frugal with the bill because our budget was just over £1,000. So the majority of the materials we used was second-hand or free unwanted stuff. For example, we salvaged all the wood in our van from skips. Even our tools were second-hand. We barely knew how to use the tools properly, never mind how to build anything, so we just felt completely out of our depth. Even the simplest of tasks felt frustrating, and every day we just ended up arguing with each other about the mistakes we were making and how slow our progress was. There were so many moments over the 3 months it took us to finish the van where we thought it would just be easier to give up and break up. But we were in too deep, and we owed it to ourselves to at least experience van life after all our hard work. Laura's granddad had kindly been coming round every few days to help us out with the build and remind us that the bickering wasn't worth it. We really needed that perspective from someone who'd navigated 50 years of partnership, and in truth, we might not have gotten through the build without him. By the end of it all, we'd somehow become quite capable of building stuff, and we were the proud owners of a little cabin on wheels.
We packed the van in a rush. We were desperate to see England in our rearview mirrors and taste real freedom. Everything we've been working towards for the last 2 years, culminating in this very moment. We pulled out of the driveway and waved goodbye to our families and the comforts of suburbia. We had enough money for 6 months on the road, and we were so excited for this next chapter. Life would be easy breezy from now on, right? Well, it turns out that transitioning to sharing a tiny home without a toilet or a fridge or a hot shower takes a bit of getting used to. The first few weeks of van life were a chaotic stream of back-to-back lessons, learning from our mistakes and also from the other van lifers that we met along the way. We learnt the hard way that if you don't park your van in the shade during the summer, you will melt into a pool of human goo. And that if you pee right on the side of a path, you will absolutely get caught with your knickers down. In the past, we would have been beaten down by everything that was going wrong, but instead we just kind of found it all hilarious. We were so out of our depth, but it didn't matter because at long last we were out of the suburbs and we were finally free.
All the things that we used to take for granted in the city, like Wi-Fi and running water, they all suddenly felt like the absolute epitome of luxury. When you've not washed in over a week and you finally find a hot shower to scrub away the layer of grime covering your skin, it feels like total bliss. We'd never felt so much gratitude for these simple things before, and it was completely shifting our mindsets. We knew we hadn't gotten to grips with van life yet, but every once in a while we would meet a fellow van lifer who would ask us how long we'd been on the road for, and we would proudly say, 3 weeks, what about you? 5 years, they'd reply, which made us realise that although van life feels chaotic right now, we would eventually become really comfortable with it over time and someday master our life on the road.
And so as time went by, we learned all the little hacks to living this way, and it no longer felt scary. We no longer peeked out the curtains in panic at night when we heard a car pull in next to us, thinking we were about to be either murdered or arrested. Things were going good, and we were camping in the most beautiful places and still managing to live at a really low budget of £100 a week between the two of us. We were even finding ways to earn little bits of money here and there. Van life finally felt like a breeze for us, and yet every night, without fail, I was waking up screaming from a recurring nightmare that the van was rolling backwards off the mountain edge. I didn't understand. I'd left the city, I'd left my job. How could I still have anxiety?
Back in England, it felt as though our zest for life was gone, and we thought that switching to van life would make us suddenly feel alive again. We assumed that by simply turning up to our bucket list travel spots, we'd feel beautifully calm and totally grounded in the present moment, that we would feel a childlike awe when we were immersed in nature, but there we were, standing in the places from the pictures on our Pinterest boards, feeling barely anything. We were confused and frustrated, as if we'd been sold a lie. Where was that overwhelming sense of peace and wonder that we'd expected would come with this lifestyle of travelling in nature?
At first, we desperately didn't want to admit it to ourselves, but the inescapable truth was that the joy from our newfound freedom was only surface level. Beneath it, something was still missing. We had left our lives in the city in search of the fulfillment and presence that we thought that van life would bring, but we hadn't found those feelings. And this brought about the depressing realization that if van life wasn't the magic solution, maybe our lives in the city were never the problem. Maybe it wasn't our external environment that needed changing, but rather our thoughts and how we approached life. We had 3 options. 1. Continue kidding ourselves that everything's idyllic until we start to feel alive again. 2. Give up on van life since it's clearly not the magic solution. Or 3. Get honest with ourselves and start learning how to truly feel present in the moment, how to find genuine fulfillment, and how to actually heal our frazzled nervous systems. We always used to love the quote that says, "When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower." Brilliant. How simple. You just need to change your environment. But in our experience, as much as we wanted life to be this straightforward, the reality is we aren't flowers. We're complex humans shaped by old scars and the old beliefs and behaviours that we learnt as kids to protect ourselves.
Don't get us wrong, changing our environment definitely did help a bit. Switching to van life instilled in us the gratitude and resilience that we could only have gained from living without modern comforts and excess. And being surrounded by the tranquility of nature was absolutely vital for soothing our overwhelmed souls, but it wasn't the entire solution. So we set out to heal and release and relearn how to feel good. We learnt mindfulness techniques that would help us feel childlike wonder again in the present moment. We trudged through heaps of therapy and journaling in order to let go of immature behaviours and self-sabotaging beliefs. We found fulfillment in building careers online, selling our art and creations to the like-minded souls who watch our videos. We discovered the impact of setting boundaries for our mental health and creating a daily routine that balances work, rest and play. And at long last, we began to feel the wholesome contentment that we've been seeking for so many years. So that brings us to where we're at today, still travelling in our humble home on wheels, spending most of the day outdoors wandering with our rescue dog Luffy and getting to know the plants that surround us, watching the seasons go by slowly whilst working away at our videos, growing our online audience and earning more than enough to sustain ourselves. And every once in a while we'll meet a fellow van lifer along the way. Excitable but frazzled, they'll tell us they've been out on the road for 3 weeks now and ask about us. We tell them we've been on the road for 5 years and that somewhere along the way it will finally start to feel easy.
Of course, there's no finish line to the self-growth work. That is a project which we'll choose to work on every day and will continue to for the rest of our lives. Things aren't perfect and they might never be, but compared to the lost, frantic and empty existence that used to be our reality, life feels refreshingly calm and bright now. The future feels exciting. Our dream is to buy land in the mountains, a little clearing in a mossy forest where we can build a magical cabin and plant a ridiculous amount of flowers all around. A place where we can grow our own food and enjoy a simple life. So as we travel slowly around the wild side of Europe, that's exactly what we're searching for. Checking out each valley and marking our favourite spots on the map so that one day, when we save up enough money, we'll know exactly which area we want to call home. Until then, we'll keep filming our van life adventures and sharing this journey with you in our vlogs. Thank you for listening to our story and watching along as we park our little home out here on the wild side.